Joining us is the former leader of Liberal Democrats and Remain campaigner, Lord Ashdown. Welcome to you, sir.
And President of the European Movement.
I love the number of titles you have.
I don't accept any job at a lower level than President.
Can I put to you a couple of the points that we've already heard this morning? And in fact, Piers was taking issue with one of them, and that is this idea. And I think, you know, this resonates with a lot of people, this sense of identity. And we heard a woman articulate it this morning very simply. She said, I want my country back. Now, is that not a reasonable sense of identity crisis for people who want to vote to leave the EU?
Susanna, it is. By the way, when they say I want my country back, I think, yeah, back 100 years, because some of the things they're talking about really are sovereignty as it was, but as it no longer is in a globalised world.
As it perhaps could be.
No, because I think it's isolationist, you see. I mean, the idea that all sovereignty is today locked up in the institutions of Westminster as it was 100 years ago is nonsense. Most of the power that affects individuals' lives is now on the global stage. Unless you will work with others, you can't have a clean environment, you can't have safe streets because crime is international, you can't combat terrorism, you can't have a strong economy.
But when you say you can't, why can't you?
Well,
if you are in control of your own borders and in control of your own policy. I mean, again, you know, we come from a completely neutral point of view as journalists, but I don't understand how you can tell people you can't when people feel you absolutely can and should.
Let me give you a very clear example. Where did the last economic crisis that nearly wrecked us begin? Did it begin in Westminster? No.
A lot of people believe it did.
But it didn't. It began with Lehman Brothers in New York. The whole of the global stage of which Britain is a part, the power to change people's lives, now lies, much of it, outside Westminster, not in. How would you create a clean environment when environment is no respecter of borders, unless you work within the European Union? How would you tackle international crime unless you work within the European Union? How would you... Look, ISIL is an international network. The way you tackle it is an international network. If you want to isolate yourselves, you're not going to do that. Let me just give you this example. I think, you see, there isn't a single one of those international commentators who believe that Brexit will not damage us, and there's not a single one of our friends, not in NATO and not in the Commonwealth, who want us to leave. So the Brexiteers are isolated, and they want us to be isolated too. It's not good for our country.
Let me put this to you. The front page of the Daily Mirror, as they come out for Remain today. This paper has its issues with the EU, but after the most divisive, vile and unpleasant political campaign in living memory, and then they give their endorsement. Pretty strong words there. You've been around the political bloc longer than you would like me to say.
Almost as long as you.
Yeah. Do you agree with that? Do you think it's been particularly vile, or is the nature of all these things that it always gets vile towards the end?
Passions run high. People will get themselves, as you saw last night. But I'm bound to say I don't think the political class has covered itself in glory in the way that it has conducted this debate. Too much hyperbole on one side, too many lies on the other. And by the way, a hyperbole is a kind of a lie, so people aren't able to tell the difference between, you know, a hyperbolized lie and a real lie.
Well, because I hear the Remain camp, and they go on and on about all the lies of the Brexit camp, but then I hear David Cameron spouting that we're heading for war and Armageddon, and, you know, George Osborne, we're all going to have to sell our houses and live in tents in the park and stuff. And it is all on both sides. It's a lot of lying going on.
I think we're actually sort of strenuously agreeing with each other about this, Piers, if I may say so. I don't believe this debate. My advice was try and stay above it, don't overstate facts, keep it down to the, you know, I think we'd have been done better. But look, we are where we are. I think at least you can say it has been a great democratic festival. I think people are genuinely engaged. My own view is turnout's going to be high. I think the central question is, in a very complex argument, how is Britain's interest best served?
We've got Boris Johnson on in a minute, right? Yeah. What is the one killer question if you were interviewing him?
Name me a single one of our allies, anyone, in NATO, in the European Union, in the Commonwealth. Every single Commonwealth country says, stay, stay. The things we fight for together. Ask him to name you one ally or one friend. There is one person who wants us to leave. Actually, there are two. Trump wants us to leave and Vladimir Putin wants us to leave. Name me a friend who wants us to leave, because they all know if we do, the things we fight for together in the Commonwealth and in NATO will be weaker rather than stronger.
But isn't his point, and he made it very eloquently to some people last night, that Friday could be
Yes.
Independence Day,
Yeah,
and it
could
doesn't
be.
matter what anybody else
he got the biggest cheer of the
thinks.
night when he
He
said
did,
that.
because it's the line they've used altogether. So what is the point of the independence of the lonely man standing in a desert with no friends?
Well, if you
You've got
describe it like
perfect
that,
independence.
of course, but
You've
you
got-
would.
But hang on. But what is the point of being alone, isolated and independent when all your friends want you to stay, when working... I mean, let me give you an example.
Sovereign, in control and independent,
Well, okay,
he might argue.
then Susanna, let me give you an example. 50 years ago, we decided that the sovereignty we have, arguably the greatest sovereignty, whether to send our young men and women to war to die, was better shared and pooled with our NATO allies. We were safer that way. Now, did we lose our sovereignty because we pooled that with our NATO allies? No, we gained sovereignty. Are we stronger or are we weaker? No, we're stronger.
Sadiq Khan last night called Boris a big fat liar over the issue of Turkey and its membership of the EU. Is he a big fat liar?
I think there's been too many lies, yes. I think the lie painted on the side of his bus that he travels around, travelling around Britain in a German bus with a lie painted on it isn't, I think, isn't a very sort of informing thing to do. And yes, I mean, look, is Turkey in the queue to join? Yeah, but it's a long way down. I mean, you know, one of those 36 points, to pretend that Turkey was about to join tomorrow, and indeed to go further, and to say that every single one of the 82 million people in Turkey are going to come to Britain. I mean, you find your own phrase for what that is. Okay. It is ridiculous.
Are you a big fat liar?
Well, listen, I can't say much about my weight at the moment, Piers, but let's be clear. I think that what the Remain campaign were talking about was the huge sums of money that we send to Brussels, and of that there can be no doubt.